Hey everyone, this is Jonah Johnson with you for another edition of JJ in the Field.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonah T Johnson with Sales Agronomist with PCT Sunrise, and today we're out here in a soybean field in the Shelby-Champaign County area. And so, Jeremy, if you wouldn't mind panning down here. A lot of the questions we're getting this time of year, we're now into the first of June, first week of June, and guys have variability in their plantings and their emergence. You know, we've been seeing that in corn over the last couple of weeks. But if you note here, we're seeing some ratty soybeans in some regards. And so the topic this week we're going to talk about is soybean replant and when do you switch maturities. Here in my flip chart, we have some Ohio State data, because the big question that we've been getting is at what point I have replant scenario on my beans, or they're not very thick and I need to interseed some, stitching some in. And so to be clear, as everybody's aware of, replanting is never an optimal case scenario, and we're always fighting something from with regards to maturity, moisture at the end of the year. Some beans are senescing and dying, others are still green, maybe you got some green stems. But the big question I've been getting a lot this week is at what point, if I planted several weeks ago, what type of maturity groups I look at based on my latitudes in Ohio. So the nice thing out of Ohio State soybean research is that we have this chart to kind of give us a background. And to me, when we're looking at replants later into June and we get into July, God forbid, that we kind of treat those as a double crop scenario. And a lot of times we'll plant later maturity soybean varieties in those double crop scenarios because ultimately we're in the first week of June. By June 21st, summer solstice, the longest day of the year, we'd like to be at full canopy to harvest as much sunlight for the rest of the growing season. So in general, you note the different soybean varieties across the chart here. The major difference between a whole number group, so from going from a 3 to a 4 or a 2 to a 3, is about 10 days. And so there's not a whole lot of difference when you get into these decimal points. We can say each 0.2 is roughly 2 days if you're doing on the 10th scale. And so as we go across, and you're looking at, if you're in the northern latitudes of Ohio, we have this broken down by the first half of June, the second, and then the first week of July. And so if you have to stitch in some beans, consider looking at some of these other maturities. So essentially what this is stay the full course till we get into the middle to latter of June and then to July. And at that point, we want to start shortening up those varieties, because ultimately what we're looking for is to make sure our varieties mature before we get a killing frost in Ohio. Historically, October 15th is a generalization for our first frost, but many years in the past, we've had it where we didn't get frost into November. So, you know, some of these double crop beans we've had the last several years have really prospered out in our fields because they had moisture in that extended period before the frost senesced them. We get into central Ohio, you note we start to go change, but see, there's still quite a range in these maturity groups. So really, till you get to July, the advice would be is to stay the course. Southern Ohio, even latter. Till we really get to that latter middle part of July is when we still need to drop in our maturity groups. The next question is, what type of planting population should we look at? Out of this 10-year data set, Ohio State looked at this very same scenario. What should my planting population? So first of all, if we look at row width, once we get into June, the narrower the row, the better. So we want to be, if you're a 30-inch row grower, we want to make sure we try to cut the difference in 15s, and even better if we can go down in the sub 10-inch row spacing, because we want canopy closure as fast as possible, especially with a lot of those summer annuals like water hemp and palmer that can really cause issues for us later in the growing season. So if you note here on our chart, we have yield here on our y-axis, and we have final stand in thousands of seeds. So from 50,000 to 250. And you note this graph, this regression is a rather curvilinear fit that show we kind of plateaued off up here at this 200,000. And so more seeds out there, depending on your row width, will help get more plants established faster. And that's how we kind of make recs based on our double crop planting scenario. So if you're out there, take a peek. Obviously, beans have the ability to compensate a lot better than corn would ever. You know, with the corn recalls we're getting, slow emergers within anything down to almost 12 hours to 24 hours in regards to corn emergence become weeds. So that's a little bit harder choice to make. But in regards to stitching in beans, replanting beans, it's always better to consider your maturity dates and your planting rates. So with that, hope I helped you guys out. This is Jonah T. Johnson with PCT Sunrise. Thanks for watching.
This is Jonah T. Johnson, Sales Agronomist with PCT Sunrise. Thanks for watching.